Right now, there's a debate raging about the responsibility of tech platforms to fact-check political ads. It's stirred up a lot of outrage, but it's also raised a tough question that we're going to have to answer sooner or later. Who should govern speech online? To answer it, let's take a look back in history. Historically, the story of speech governance concerned two parties: citizens and the state. While some laws against harmful speech are necessary, the danger of this model is that the massive power of the state might result in laws that violate a citizen's fundamental right to speech. This is one of the reasons we have the First Amendment in the United States, to curb the power of the state to censor speakers. Beyond the fear of state censorship, citizens were also dependent on entities like book publishers or newspaper editors and radio and television producers in order to reach a large audience and to amplify their message. Then came the internet, which blew all of this up. We all know this story. When the internet took off, suddenly there were three players, not just the state and citizens, but now online speech platforms. It created what Yale law professor Jack Balkin calls the free speech triangle. This new system made the old fears of state censorship and the dependence on the press for amplification somewhat irrelevant. Users could just route around the state via the platform and amplify their speech. Here's the thing. As it turns out, the Wild West days of the early internet, anything goes speech, were not always that great for users. In particular, they resulted in the proliferation of a lot of different kinds of bad content: non-consensual pornography, child pornography, hate speech, harassment, and bullying. So people wanted good speech to stay up, but bad speech to come down. The players with the most capacity to do that were tech companies. Tech platforms regulating what speech stays up or goes down began an era of what I like to call the new governors, the model we have today. Now there are two players regulating your speech: the new governors, private tech platforms, and the old governors, traditional governments. And private platforms can, do, and should have different rules for speech than governments. One of those different rules for speech is based on whether a speaker is a political figure, and relatedly, how newsworthy their speech may be. But those aren't easy or clear lines to draw. Twitter is a great example. They've stopped allowing paid political ads, but because he's a political figure, they still allow President Trump to violate their own content guidelines on a regular basis, with a bit of an underlying theory that he's newsworthy. But this just isn't about Facebook's ad policy or Twitter's Trump policy. It's about rethinking that same tough, big question: who should govern speech online? And the answer is all of us. We continue to act as if there's only one governor of speech, or that the old governor is the only answer to our new ones. But all of this fails to see that the whole speech ecosystem has changed. And the only party that continues to be underrepresented in this speech triangle are citizen users. If we want to protect free speech and make sure all of the parties governing it are accountable for their role, the first step is changing how we think about speech. And the second step is to push for platforms to be more accountable to users. And we need to think outside traditional solutions to get there. This isn't a question we can leave for another time or another generation. Frankly, if we wait too long, we may not be allowed to ask it at all.